We have reached about 82 participants here, so let's go ahead and get things started today. So welcome everybody. Hyvää päivää kaikille kuuntelijoille ympäri maailmaa. Tervetuloa Finlandia Foundation Nationalin puolesta syksyn ensimmäiseen Finnposiumiin. On hienoa, että olette kaikki täällä keskustelemassa resursseista siirtolaisuusinstituutissa ja Finnish-American Heritage Centerissä. God dag till alla lyssnare runt om i världen. På uppdrag av Finlandia Foundation National, välkomna till höstens första Finnposium. Det är fantastiskt att ha er alla här för att diskutera tillgängliga resurser vid Migrationsinstitutet och Finnish-American Heritage Center. Greetings to all of our listeners from around the world and welcome to our first Finnposium event of the fall season, Researching Finnish-American Migration 101, an introduction to the Finnish-American Heritage Center Historical Archive and Migration Institute of Finland. It's great to have you all here to highlight something that we all find so important, both in North America and in Finland. My name's Tommy Flanagan. I'm the Executive Director of FFN. And our Finnposium events offer a platform for Finns, Finnish Americans and Friends of Finland to come together and highlight interesting and important topics from around Finnish America and Finland. From film discussions and historical topics to culinary excursions and exclusive interviews, Finnposium always offers us a chance to learn something new. And this session is no exception. This session will also be recorded and made available on our YouTube channel after today's conversation. And we do think we are better together, yhdessä, tillsammans, which is why I want to thank our partners for helping us put on events today. Especially Lena Granat, Executive Director of SAM, the Suomi-Amerikka Yhdistysten Liitto, who will also serve as today's moderator. Additionally, I want to thank the Migration Institute of Finland for their expertise and always willingness to work with us. Especially, I want to wish them a happy 50th anniversary year, which you'll hear about more later. We're so thankful for the cooperation of Sara Pellander, the director of the Migration Institute of Finland, and Dr. Samira Saramo, who is our expert presenting today. And finally, I want to give a huge thanks to our very own expert and Finlandia Foundation colleague, Joanna Chop, archivist at the Finnish-American Heritage Center in Hancock, Michigan. I just want to also give a little trailer for a story to come that has to do with Finnish-American connections and archival connections to the Library of Congress. I recently got to visit the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., and I'll just say I saw some material that we have at the Heritage Center, duplicates or stuff, archival material that's out of our scope that may be being accessioned into the Library of Congress. So there's more on that developing story to come, so stay tuned for that. So you're not here to hear from me today, so without further ado, I will turn it over to the director of the Migration Institute of Finland, Sara Pellander. I wish you all a fantastic fall Finnposium.
Thank you so much, Tommy, and hello everyone online. It's so lovely to see so many people there. We are really happy to have that many attendance. It is evening here in Finland. I guess it's morning for you who are in the US, and I hope you're all doing well. I am not going to speak for very long. You will hear more about the resources of the Migration Institute from my lovely colleague Samira in a minute, but I wanted to use this opportunity to quickly just introduce what this place, the Migration Institute of Finland, actually is, in case you haven't heard about it before. So I'm the director of this institute, and it's mainly a research institute, of course, so that's kind of studying migration and all its different forms, and how migration is a very vital part of our societies, and how societies are shaped by migration, but how migration also shapes our societies is one of our central topics that we study. Then, and this is the important part that probably you will very much hear about today, or that you will hear especially about today, is all the material that we actually produce and gather and record and make available to the general public, to researchers, to journalists, through various venues online, our library, our archive, and also as part of our research partly, but you will hear more about that later. But that is also why we exist. And then what our third kind of main mission is, why we have a place like this Migration Institute here in Finland, is that we want to actively be part of debates relating migration when we talk about it in public discussions, influence policy making about it, inform decision makers, NGOs, practitioners about both historical and current migration issues that will then hopefully help to make better decisions and better societies for people who arrive and who leave. But as Tommy just pointed out, we have an anniversary year. So the Migration Institute was actually founded in 1974. And back when it was founded, there was a lot of emigration from Finland to various places around the world. I mean, the most prominent immigration of that period was probably to Sweden, but there has of course been more historical migration movements that many of your ancestors are probably part of, but then of course also to other places around the world. But there was a lack of knowledge about it and scholarship, and there wasn't really a place that would gather like studies and archival material about this topic. But from the start, even if this Finnish emigration was the impetus to found a place like the Institute is today, we have also studied migration to Finland from the very start. And we actually also look at migratory movements within Finland and regional development and these kind of topics. And yeah, this year, because it's our 50th anniversary, we've had a very busy year with a touring exhibition, a touring research seminar. We've had the ulkosuomalaisten suurkuoro giving a concert in Turku that was part of our anniversary activities. We have a symposium coming up in October. Lots of stuff. If you are interested in the events, we have on our website, there's like this 50th anniversary logo with all the stuff going on. Parts of these can be followed online. For example, our symposium, there are several amazing lectures, and some of them are in English that you can also follow from afar if you're interested. And yeah, I will not go into detail of everything that we do, but basically just as this slide is just an overview of all the stuff that go on. We do events, we have exhibitions going on. We have a wonderful library in Turku that you can visit when you're there, but also get resources online from in various ways that you probably will soon hear more about. We give out small grants for people who do research and studies related to migration and all sorts of things. But you will hear more about what we do soon from Samira, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to say hello also from my behalf. And we are very happy that this event is also part of our 50th anniversary program, and I'm glad that you're all here. And I'll now give the word to Lena Granat, who will moderate this session and continue from here.
Thank you very much. And welcome also all. I can see there's a lot of SAM members here online, and great to see all the Finlandia Foundation members as well. As Tommy said, it's my pleasure to work closely with Finlandia Foundation and Siirtolaisinstituutio. I think together we are stronger, as Tommy said. So a little bit about SAM and or Suomi-Amerikka Yhdistysten Liitto. We are actually this is our 81st year already. We celebrated our 80th anniversary last year. And our mission is, in all simplicity, is bringing Finnish and Americans closer together. And we have done that over the 80 years in various different ways. From kindergartens, from English classes, Finnish classes, travel programs, educational programs, exchange programs, and so on. Today, we have sort of selected how most of our members are interested. It's either culture, history, society, travel, business work, or study in the USA. And those, we try to gather towards those interests that our members want to hear more. And we provide, for example, scholarships. So we're sort of like a mirror image of Finlandia Foundation here in Finland. We give scholarships for Finnish students who want to study in America. And we also provide summer jobs for young students to go to experience firsthand what it is to work in the US and so on. We're also media. We have a SAM magazine that is published 4 times a year, the print magazine, but we also have very interesting stories weekly on our sammagazine.fi. The stories are both in English and Finnish, so everybody can find something interesting to read. there. And our latest, because I said we're connecting Finns and Americans, we have this SAM hub where we actually physically can connect, where you can talk to from member to member. As a SAM member, you can talk to any other member, whether they are in the US or in Finland. You can connect there on that platform. But today we're talking about immigration and how we can use the resources that both the Finlandia Foundation Heritage Center and Siirtolaisinstituutti are offering for us. So I will then give the floor to our presenters. But before we go there, just a few house rules. You can have the questions, if there are questions, either whether they're to Joanne or Samira on the chat box. So once you have a question, just write it there. And then we have, at the end of the session, we have a short Q&A where we try to then answer the questions that you have written to us. Thank you. And with that, I will give the floor to Joanne.
Hello, my name is Joanna Chop. I'm the archivist here at the Finnish-American Heritage Center, a position I have held now for 13 years. You may be thinking that Chop is not a Finnish name, and it is not. My husband's family is Croatian, but just so you don't think that I don't have any Finnish-American bona fides, my mother's maiden name is Mattila, and going back in the family tree, it includes Toro, Korva, Petrilius, and many other Finnish surnames from areas like Kuusamo, Taivalkoski, Lokka, Pudasjärvi, Innari, and Ivalo. I am going to be sticking to my notes today because otherwise I'll go off on tangents and not get through the material that I wanted to cover. But let me share my screen. If you have never visited the Finnish-American Heritage Center, this is our building. We are located in Hancock, Michigan. We used to be part of Finlandia University, which unfortunately closed last year, but we are now under the auspices of Finlandia Foundation National, and we are continuing with our mission to preserve and share Finnish-American history and culture. Let me advance. There we go. There is, a while ago, there was a trend going around on social media to explain your job in a weird way. And in honor of my love of Halloween and all things spooky, I like to say my job is to help people dig up their dead relatives and put them in a tree, which sounds really macabre, but it's not wrong, especially because a lot of what I do here is genealogy research. We help unearth information to make your ancestors as fully fleshed out as we can, decades or centuries after they're gone. And there are a lot of misconceptions about what archives have and what archivists do. Lots of people think we're either a library or a museum, and we do function part like both of those things. Lots of visitors think we have everything neat and tidy and labeled in a pristine box in a big storeroom, and we can just take it out and wave our magic wand and find everything they're looking for. Many people think that everything is online now and that a physical archive is irrelevant. And I hope my presentation will help clear up some of these misconceptions and give you an idea of what kinds of materials we have and how you can utilize them in your own research. So this first document, if I know it's really hard to read, there's very small text, but most of my visitors here come to do genealogy work. When setting up an appointment, I typically do a research interview and ask them to share what they know about whoever it is they're looking for. So names, birth, death, and marriage dates, the year of immigration, where they were born, where they settled, where they died, church or political affiliations. Each piece of information you find can lead to another and help you paint a picture of the person you're looking for. And for lots of people, the answers to these primary questions can be found online now using resources from the comfort of your own home. Massive databases like Ancestry.com or FamilySearch.org allow you to find things like passenger lists, census records, county marriage registries, city directories, and death certificates. So the image on my screen, I decided to sort of share a story about a real immigrant person. This one just happens to be my great-grandfather. So if you look down at the red arrow there, this is from the 1910 census. And using the stuff I can find online, then will guide us into what kinds of archival materials here at the FAHC could also be used to find more information. So if you look at that line where the red arrow is pointing, you'll see that Samuel Matala was living in a small farming village in Toivola, Staten Township, Michigan in 1910. He is living with his older brother, William, and their aging parents. You can see down, sort of, here's Samuel's line. He had submitted his first papers for citizenship. He had immigrated in 1902. He was employed with a lumber company. So these are all small details that help us find other resources. Now, this document, again, found online. This one's from FamilySearch.org. This is a ledger entry that records Sam's marriage to my great-grandmother, Laura Johnson. It helpfully lists the names of their parents, which gives us another generation that we can research going further back. And we learn where the marriage took place and who performed the ceremony. The third document I found, some states have different regulations on what records are accessible online. Thankfully, Michigan has been digitizing death certificates and have shared them, like the actual documents, at michiganology.org. Sam's death falls outside of the range of what's been digitized so far, but this is his wife's death certificate, my great-grandmother Laura. She died, unfortunately, very shortly after giving birth to my youngest great aunt, who never knew her mother. So, using the details from the documents that I found online, we can take that information and start looking for archival resources that aren't available online. We know they lived in Toivola, Michigan. From the 1910 census, we know Sam was living with his brother's family, working in that logging camp. From the marriage ledger, we know the marriage took place in Calumet, and it was performed by A.L. Hademan. If you do a quick search for Hademan's name, you find that he's affiliated with the Apostolic Lutheran Church in Calumet. We might ask ourselves, why did they get married in Calumet if they're both from Toivola? It's a good question. Maybe we could find what churches still exist there, see if they have records. The archive does not have those records. The marriage ledger lists their parents' names. You can use that to trace them back to Finland, probably using some of the resources that Samira is going to talk about in a short time. The death certificate for Laura tells us where she was buried. We can contact cemetery sextons to find out if they have burial records. It also lists the undertaker and the funeral home who handled the burials. Our collections include records from 3 local funeral homes that catered to a mostly Finnish-American clientele. Unfortunately, those were not helpful in this case. But taking all of these details, we can then take them to our online catalog and our online finding aids. So let's take a look through, as I said, with this as an example, at our online catalog. So here's the catalog, very basic keyword search. Because of our time limit, we're going to stick with just searching for the keyword Toivola. And you can see 56 results here from our collections, everything from organizational records, a bank book that belonged to someone who lived in Toivola, a book written for the centennial of the community, et cetera, et cetera. Going to our online finding aids, this is the Heritage Center's website. The archive button is up here. Genealogy indices. We've got obituaries. Let's start there. We know we're looking for Madela. Many, many Madelas, as you can see. We're looking for Sam. There is a Sam Madela listed. I don't know his death date, so it's something we would take out and make sure to double check if it's the right person. And this is one of the funeral homes that I was talking about, the Wadia Funeral Home records. These are indexed as well. So again, Madela, there's 2 Sams. We would take a look at both of those, see if they match who we are looking for. And other indexes as well. So there are several books in our collection that list biographical information, membership records from groups like the Knights of Galeva, one of our photo indexes, cemeteries. There's a lot of resources here depending on who you're looking for and where they lived. So from our catalog search, 2 of the things listed there were these items. The one on the left is a family history written by one of my great uncles, one of Sam's sons, Gordon Madela. And the other one on the right is the Centennial book that we saw the listing for. So if you found something like that on our catalog listing, and then you come in for a visit or you contact me and say, hey, I'm really interested in if this contains information about a specific person, we can explore that. And in this case, these both contain a lot of information about Sam Madela and his descendants, including me. Here is a page from one of those funeral home records for one of the Samuel Madelas listed, but comparing the information that's listed on this page with what I know about my great-grandfather, this is not the right Samuel Madela. So comparing those things and not just taking the name as the only thing to match is very important. So real people, but not always the right people. Another interesting resource is our photo collections. There are 2 finding aids on our website. One is topic-based, so you could search it for things like the family name or the place that you're looking for. The other one is indexed by people who are specifically ID'd in photographs. The ones that pertain to Toivola in particular were donated by the senior citizens group of Toivola. They met every month. They had gathered photos for a project to sort of identify some of these old photos while there were still people around who could do that. And then the copies that were made were donated here to the archive. So we know that Sam lived there. We know roughly when he lived there. So we know that he was a logger. So he might have worked with a rig like this. Sam and his brother owned farms. This is not from their farm, but it's from a similar farm. So they probably would have cut and hauled hay in a very similar fashion. Here is a picture included in that collection of Sam's tractor that he used to run his own sawmill. And what's interesting personally is that this tractor was in Toivola until 1985 when it was sold as parts. And just earlier this year, one of my uncles found out that it has actually been restored into running condition somewhere in Lower Michigan. And they actually went and saw it and got to take it for a ride. Included in that collection is Sam and Laura's wedding photo, as well as a group family portrait from 1955 with their 13 living children, unfortunately, all of whom are now deceased. And then also included in that photo collection, the top left is the school that Sam's children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren all attended, including myself. There was indeed an Apostolic Lutheran Church in Toivola, but it wasn't dedicated until the 30s, which is probably why they were married in Calumet. There was a co-op store in Toivola, which burned when I was a small child. I vaguely remember it, but here's a great picture. All of these things help to give an idea of what it was like living during Sam's lifetime, what he may have experienced, people he met, all of them giving indication about just what life was like. So that's just a walkthrough of one immigrant story and how the resources here can be used to help flesh out that story. We are open for research Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4. I very much appreciate having appointments set up ahead of time, since I am at the moment the lone staff down here. And just to make sure that someone is here to answer your questions, I do ask for appointments ahead of time. And there is our website as well, that you can start doing some of this preliminary research and reach out with any questions. So that's my presentation, a very brief walkthrough. I am going to stop sharing and hand it over to Samira to let us hear about what kinds of resources they have there.
Thank you, Joanne. Very interesting. And there's a lot of questions already streaming in. So, but we will save all those questions for later once we've heard from Samira. Go ahead, Samira, when you're ready.
All right, thank you. You can hear me all right? Oh, no. Can you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I was worried there that I was muted after all that terrible nightmare situation, but that wasn't the case. Thank you, Joanna. It's always so nice to hear about your archives, and that was a lovely way to piece that together through your relative. And thanks, Tommy and Elena and everyone who's here. It was nice to see some familiar names in the list. So yeah, I'm Samira Saramo. I work at the Migration Institute of Finland as a senior research fellow, and I coordinate our research on Finns abroad and Finnish immigration. And also part of my job is to work on archival development questions for us. So this is a real kind of passion area for me. In my own work, I'm a historian, and for about 20 years have been researching Finns in Canada and the US. And I'm a Finnish Canadian myself. So today I wanted to share what kind of resources we have at the Migration Institute of Finland. And in case it's not familiar to you beyond what Sara shared at the beginning of the session, we have our main office here in beautiful Turku, where I'm sitting tonight. And this is where our archive is located as well. We also have a small center in Seinäjoki, which is maybe a place name that is familiar to many Finnish Americans and Finnish North Americans, because a lot of people emigrated from that region, as well as in Vaasa, where we have a small Swedish speaking Finland research center as well. But our resources that I'll tell you about, you'll find either online or here in Turku. So just very quickly to build on what Sara was also saying, so we are primarily a research institute, and we do all kinds of interdisciplinary academic research on historical and contemporary migrations, and we're always interested in kind of the societal impact and bringing together these historic and contemporary migrations as well. And so, as Sara mentioned, we have expertise in migration to Finland now, and we have expertise on forced migrations and internal migrations. But as you probably know, if you're familiar with our institute, is that we have a very strong tradition in doing this work on Finns abroad, and particularly in North America. So we are a publisher. We are many things, and one of them is that we're a publisher. I always like to click through all of these right from the beginning so I don't forget any. But so we have a journal that comes out twice a year called Migration that you can all access, where it's popularized research articles and book reviews, and they're usually on a theme that our researchers and our collaborators have been particularly interested in lately. We also have a peer-reviewed scientific research, and then we have a broader publication series where we have for 50 years now been publishing all kinds of great studies and family histories on Finnish migration. We also do a report series, and then for a strong recommendation for anybody who has Finnish language in their repertoire, we're very proud of our podcast Tervetuloa, Tervemenoa, which is available on any streaming thing that you like to use, like Spotify or Apple Music. And this is one where I think that we've done a really great job of bringing together questions about historic migrations and contemporary migrations and kind of bringing up some different perspectives on these things. So please do check that out. We have a library, so maybe this tip is primarily for people who are in Finland and listening, maybe from the SAM Finnish crowd. We have a library here in Turku, and we are Finland's only specialty library focused on migration. And I almost every day can't believe how lucky I am that I get to walk down the hall and borrow anything I want having to do with this amazing resources on Finnish North American materials. But anybody can borrow from our collection. It's all integrated for the search in the University of Turku's library system, which makes it easy to find out what we have. But if you have no affiliation to the University of Turku, it doesn't matter at all, because you can just come here and we will give you a library card. So if you're in Turku or visiting, do come check that out. So we have a large archive. It's an archive of including the history of the Migration Institute and some a small collection of immigration materials, which is growing. But we have a very large immigration collection, which over half of it is focused on Finns in North America. So in this, we have, over 20,000 letters, some 38,000 photographs, over 700 hours of interviews. And we're really kind of proud of how the archive has been made up of so many small donations of materials and how many communities and individuals have contributed to making this collection over the last 50 years. So we have, a lot of audiovisual materials in every format you could imagine that has been around. And we do also have a lot of historical artifacts. And these materials are all cataloged in the finna.fi portal, which I will tell you more about in just a moment. So for people who are with us this evening or this morning, as the case may be, we have the archives is probably of interest to you, but so I would assume would be our genealogical resources. So we have over 800,000 genealogical records, which are primarily focused on, or all focused on Finns who emigrated before World War II and primarily focused on Finnish emigration to North America. As a little tip, this book, How to Trace Your Roots in Finland, which we have just very recently updated with the latest information, is completely free for you to download and use. And you'll find it on our website on our genealogy pages. And I wanted to get into, in my remainder of the time here, tell you about these digital materials that everybody can access. So they basically, I'll tell you although it's not in this order, I don't think, about the Emigrant Register, about Finna, about Doria, and about journal.fi. Journal.fi, maybe not more than to say that that's where our Migration Muuttoliike magazine is found, and that's where many of Finland's academic and popular journals and magazines can be accessed completely free of charge. So if you go to our website, siirtolaisuusinstituutti.fi or .fi, you can, in the corner, switch it to Finnish, Swedish, or English. We have a good trilingual website. So here I've taken the examples from the English. And if you go from the page to the Materials tab, you will find the pull-down menu for the archives. Then when you go to the archives, it'll give you, right off the bat, this is just a screenshot of the top of the page, an overview of what kinds of materials we have. But here is what I would really like to draw your attention, because it's quite subtle and we are trying to make it, we're going to change the format so it's more obvious. But if you click right where I've highlighted on Finna Search Service, it will bring you directly to one of Finland's most wonderful resources, this finna.fi platform. This is a database where just about all of Finland's archives and museums and some libraries are uploading their collection descriptions, as well as digitized resources. The thing about this is that it is an amazing resource and it's growing all the time. I know we are adding to Finna every day, just about, but it can be a little bit tricky to navigate without Finnish. And the reason for that is the metadata. That the metadata for the materials is written in Finnish. So it means, as I've highlighted in the top corner, you can switch it to English, and then you get all these, content type, author, topic, region. But then when you pull them down, for example, region, then suddenly we have Finnish names of places, Yhdysvallat, Neuvostoliitto. So I highlighted Yhdysvallat there for a Finnish lesson of the day for USA. So it can be a little bit tricky to navigate. And so partially also for that reason, we do recommend that the most easy way to access our materials is to go through that link directly from our website. So then you don't need to start kind of going through all the multiple levels of the search to hone in on what we have here. But by all means, do broad searches of Finna, because it's just such a wonderful treasure trove that is just making all these Finnish materials so accessible to anybody who has access to the internet. So yeah, and I also highlighted their content type because that might be interesting, for example, to do image searches if you're trying to contextualize your search, as in Joanna's great example that she was giving us. What is next here? Oh yeah, Doria.fi. Now, Doria is another one that I love sharing the word about. This is a resource where all kinds of textual sources, so books in particular, are downloaded and are freely available online to everybody. And we have all of the publications that the Migration Institute of Finland in 50 years has ever made are all fully available to download as PDFs, high-resolution PDFs on here. We also have significant collections of digitized almanacs, for example, on here, or these oh, I'm lost for words in both language now, but these like anniversary publications for example, different organizations, these commemorative issues. There is all kinds of stuff here. So here at doria.fi, you can find our research that we've done at the Institute, but also these primary sources that might be really interesting for you as you're doing your research. For example, this very first one on this slide, shows that we have digitized also many Finnish-American publications, books, and kind of research reports from decades ago. So this is a really great resource as well. But again, the disappointing news that not the easiest to navigate. Doria is clumsier than Finna is in my opinion, and the English is even more limited here. So, for example, unless it's changed in the last couple of weeks, you can't, even though there are materials in all kinds of languages uploaded to Doria, there's no place where you can decide that you're searching only for English language materials. So it does require some scrolling, unfortunately. But again, we suggest that if you want easy access to the materials that we've put on doria.fi, to go through our website in the materials tab, and it will bring you here. And then we do also have, it looks like in that tab, 353 publications, so quite a lot there too. But just such a wonderful resource, and we're so happy that many of you seem to have already found it, because we actually find that out of all the resources we have, this is the most popular, that this gets tens of thousands of downloads on here regularly. So it's very exciting for us to see how well this is reaching people who might not get it otherwise. The other major resource that possibly several of you are already familiar with, hopefully, is our Emigrant Register. So this is an online database of our passport records and passenger lists. And it is accessible through our website, again, through the genealogical resource tab. You can get this link, or I've put it there. And there is a free version of this where you can do a name search. And then for a modest annual membership of 30 euros, you have unlimited access to all of the online records. But what is really invaluable is that with that membership, you can also contact our archivist, and they can give you some direct tips on how to help you conduct your specific searches on here. But I have to always say, on behalf of Jarno Heinila, our archivist, that he is but one person who wears many hats in our institute. So it can take him a bit of time to answer, but he's wonderful at helping and navigating these systems. So when you go to the Migrant Registry website, here I think we have English very well handled, as well as Finnish and Swedish, and it'll give you some basic search tips right off of the bat. So this is a screenshot, or actually two screenshots that I put side by side of some of the tips that come in the homepage to tell you how to do that. So there are tips right from the get-go. But I wanted to share a few more tips that I have shared before, for example, at FinFest in Duluth this past July. But if you're using this, and this probably is actually true of several of these genealogical registries, that of course, this is the basic details. This is the first level that Joanna was talking about, and this is the first step of the big puzzle that we're piecing together when we're hoping to kind of retrace people's paths. But it gives you some pieces of that puzzle, and then you use all those other materials to contextualize it. we suggest that you start with just a name and then add the criteria bit by bit to it. Because if you put in all of the information you have, then you might be disappointed that if there's not an exact match, because at some point along the way there was a typo somewhere, you know, that then nothing comes up at all. So start with just the name you have. And furthermore, don't necessarily write out the full name. So the example that we use is if you're looking for a relative named Juho Virtanen, you could start with a search that's just Juh Virta, because we know we have Juho, Juha. There are different versions that this could take, and then with different ways that it's been, you know, these have been written and rewritten so many times over the years, so that you can start with these shortened versions, especially if there are last names that have had different endings that might have been chopped off or changed somewhere along the family line, that this is your best kind of a chance of finding them. One thing is that you must use your as and ös in your searches, because you will not find a Mäkinen if you search for a Makinen in our system. So you could even, well, if you don't know the quick code to do that, have a Word doc open where you have your a and ö, and you can copy them over when you're doing your searches, that will be more effective for you. I think I have time to say everything I wanted to before my minutes run up here, but remember also that when you are searching for the passport information, you are going to find the name of the place where the person was living or the place where the person was applying for the passport, not necessarily the same as the place where they were born. So don't give up hope if you find that a person, you're like, oh, but I know they're from this village and this says this on the record. It could still, you could still be very much onto it, but it's this difference between the kotikunta and then the birthplace. The passport registry currently goes only to the 1920s. And in some cases, for example, war years, there are gaps. But for some regions of Finland, and good news for most genealogists, for the areas of the heaviest migration, those records are complete and they're all available here. And then for the passenger lists, 1892 is the earliest records, and they really go till 1918. There's a trickle of them beyond, and again, there are gaps in some of these years. But also that if you are subscribing to the annual membership, we aren't doing that to make any kind of profit. That money goes directly back into our registry in order for us to keep adding to it over and over again. So Jarno and some wonderful volunteers we have here are doing that work all the time and trying to make it better and better for you. So, you know, it's worth going back to it every now and again to see if something new has come up for you. Final word is that you can find us on the social medias, and you can find us on our website. And I promised our librarian/communications person that I would tell you that you should sign up for our newsletter, which you can do directly through our website main page. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Samira. That was very, very informative. And thank you, Joanna, also. I think everybody now wants to learn more. And there were a lot of questions or discussions going on as you were talking, but I think you covered most of the questions already, but I'm just going to try to make sure that we have answered everything. There were questions about the church records, Lutheran Church. Would you be able to delve into that a little bit more, whether there are any archives for the Lutheran churches in the US?
Absolutely. The Suomi Synod, which would be the Finnish Evangelical Lutheran Church, the seminary was part of Suomi College for many, many, many years until the 60s. So those records mostly are here. If congregations closed, usually those records came here. This archive was designated the official repository while the seminary still existed, and while the Suomi Synod existed. They merged with the ELCA several decades ago. So sometimes those records go to their regional ELCA archive, but we've been working with them recently to more or less get the rest of the Finnish congregations under our roof. As far as the Apostolic Lutheran records, there are three main Apostolic Lutheran bodies that exist here in the Copper Country. There is the Old Apostolic, the First Apostolic, and the Federation Apostolic, or the Apostolic Lutheran Church of America. Those congregations mostly maintain their own records. There have been a few over the years when a congregation closes or congregations merge that those records have come here. They tend to be the minute books and not necessarily all of the membership records. For the churches in Calumet, which I believe the question was asking about specifically, we have a microfilm of the old apostolic records that include some of their early, baptisms, confirmations, burials, marriages, things like that, but it's only on microfilm and it is incomplete. You would have to contact those church congregations themselves to see if other records still exist in their hands.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anything, Samira, that you want to add to that, or?
Just thinking that on the Finnish side, I think for the churches, the Finnish Genealogical Society is the best place, that they've been doing a lot of that work of digitizing and creating databases of the church records. And somebody, I tried to quickly scroll through that very active conversation there, was asking about the passport records from before the 1890s when our immigrant registry begins. And in that case, I think I would turn you again to the Finnish Genealogical Society, that they would be the best help in those earlier periods, also through the church records, I think.
Excellent, very good. Yeah. There was also a couple of questions about, let me see if I can find it, for relatives who emigrated from US to Russian Karelia and disappeared.
Yes.
Any tips for that?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. This is also one of my research areas. I think Sara or somebody, I'm guessing it was Sara because it was a very good explanation here, but that we do have the Eilalahti Argutina databases integrated into our immigrant register. So it is possible to do this kind of search. In this case, I would definitely direct people also to the National Archives of Finland, who in the last years have had a very kind of dedicated focus on bringing together information about Finns in the Soviet Union. And so if the relative happened to still have a Finnish citizenship, then I would think that you would definitely find information about them there. If they had a American or Canadian citizenship, which many of them in the 30s did because of the way that the law of citizenships went, they are likely to be there, but not guaranteed in the same way to be. But now I can't think off the top of my head how much English language information there is, but they do have also some dedicated researchers working on questions of Finns in the Soviet Union. So they are a really great resource on this.
Excellent, very good. And I think Tommy is also putting some more information online. And by the way, you can ask questions in Finnish. Voitte myös laittaa kysymyksiä sinne suomen kielellä. Ei tarvitse jännittää kieltä. Me käännetään sitten, että
Kyllä.
kysymyksiä saa laittaa. I think you covered that there was a question about the A's and O's and dots and all that you covered well, Samira. Thank you for that already in your presentation.
Although in our collections regarding the letters,
Yeah.
in American records, those dots were often dropped. So in looking through our indexes, it is wise to search for both, with umlauts and without.
Excellent, very good. So that's always good to remember that depending where the source is, how it has been written. It's most likely in the US, you won't see the As and Ers there. And there were some tips also for, believe it was University of Minnesota had some resources available. Are you familiar with that?
Although I do also want to say that some of the examples that were given, like the FinFest records, that is true that they probably have the majority of those records. However, all of the FinFests that were held here as partly hosted by Suomi College or Finlandia University, we actually have those archives here.
Okay, good. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that Immigration History Research Center Archives is a really great resource, another, wonderful source for Finnish-American materials. But another one that I've grown to really appreciate is Joanna's neighbor at Michigan Tech. Also has a really nice, it's more regionally focused, I understand, but they also have a lot of Finnish-American materials. So Finns have been very good at creating archives, luckily for us who enjoy digging into this history.
Especially if you are looking for relatives who were involved in the mining industry here, Michigan Tech would be a great resource to use.
Thank you. There's a question now that where can I find passenger list before 1892?
Yeah, I think then Ancestry is the good, you have to pay for it, but the good comb of whatever records have been made available. So if you have access to that, many public libraries, for example, have subscriptions. So that could be a way. And then I think the web pages of the Finnish Genealogical Society here in Finland would be another place to turn to for those earlier ones. It is, of course, like in those earlier periods, we think too that it gets more complicated because of the nationalities question, because of the shipping company politics, people listed as Russian citizens traveling through Swedish shipping companies. So the Finns require a little bit more digging in some cases to find them. But I think that luckily there's a lot of resources. Yeah, again, the Finnish Genealogical Society, I think, is a really good one for that.
I think that was a very good tip that you gave, Samira, about that looking or searching for not the full name necessarily. And here also what you're saying, or at least what I'm hearing, is when you're doing the research, thinking sort of outside the box, maybe the person was listed as Swede or Russian or whatnot. So rather than trying to be typically we go with very specific idea that I have so much information about this person and I'm just going to plug it in and it pops out, but it's almost the other way around.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, because it is, yeah, of course you would think like, oh, well, if I put everything I have, it'll be a very targeted search, like it has to line up, but it's all it takes is for one piece of that to not match with something. And these technology is very good, but it isn't as smart as we sometimes think it is. And so it'll kind of fall apart if it has one extra. So to kind of build up the search bit by bit, the criteria of the searches will end up being more fruitful in most cases.
Yeah, I thought that was a brilliant tip because we tend to think specifically and then we say, okay, there's nothing under this name or this citizenship or this ship or whatnot. Yeah, very good. All right, I think
Tommy
I
asked whether or not
Yes.
we have materials from outside of the Upper Peninsula, which we absolutely do. I think one of the great resources outside of the UP are our newspaper collections. We try to collect the physical newspapers, although sometimes we just have the microfilmed versions that were done in the 70s with collaboration from the University of Helsinki. But we have newspapers like New Yorkin Uutiset. There was a Finnish paper that was published in, I believe, Utah for a very short period of time that, as far as I know, we're the only one that has copies of them. Newspapers from New England. Somebody in the comments talked about the Finns in Massachusetts. Absolutely. We've got church records from a lot of those places. So while Finnish immigrants tended to at least pass through the Upper Peninsula, as they dispersed, we at least try to collect materials from those areas as well. And someone's asking about the työmies. We have quite a few työmies newspapers. It is not a full run, and we're still actively looking for those as well.
And if I could add another tip there on newspapers, that it's still a little known thing because it's brand new, but the National Library of Finland has just completed an enormous digitization project on Finnish North American newspapers. And they have done a huge job to bring together so many publications in ways that we really didn't have access to before. And they're really high quality searchable also. The OCR is wonderful. So National Library of Finland, that's a really kind of game-changing new resource for us, brand new.
Thank you for reminding that. That's a good resource for everybody. I'm curious, Joanne, you talk about the publications that you're collecting. Are you still collecting like more recent magazines that from Florida, Seattle, wherever there are Finnish groups? Do they send you material or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We collect like newsletters from Finlandia Foundation chapters, from the few Finnish halls that still exist, religious publications. For example, the Apostolic Lutheran Church publishes, I think it's a monthly, Christian monthly. We collect those as well. So yes, we are still collecting current publications.
Yeah, good to know.
And our library subscribes to just about every Finnish newsletter or newspaper or magazine that's still published worldwide. So you can come read those here too in our library if you're in Finland.
That's good. That's good. So in the 100 years from now, then people will be searching things that we did today. So that's good to know. You'll keep it up. Okay, there's still a question about Canadian Finns.
Finally, no.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of materials on Canadian Finns also at the Migration Institute of Finland. But the best kind of Canadian resources are held at the Library and Archives of Canada in Ottawa. And then the other big ones are the Archives of Ontario in Toronto, which have the I don't know if this is getting too nerdy into detail, but they have the huge collection of the Multicultural History Society of Ontario, which has a very big Finnish collection. Right next door in Toronto is the York University Archives, where it has the late great Varpu Lindström's archive, which is also a really rich one. And then Lakehead University Archives in Thunder Bay is another major Finnish Canadian resource that also, and all of these have digital finding aids and some digitized materials. So there's a lot online too for the Canadians.
Excellent, very good. Very good. Okay, there's a translation services question. There's Tommy. Maybe you want to verbalize your question.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was clearing out the question and answer and trying to, Lena, you did a great job of pulling together questions. We had a very active chat, which I think Joanna and Samira means you've hit the mark. But one question that came up in the Q&A that wasn't visible to public is what you recommend for services for translation, like if people have records or they have some material that's in Finnish, are there services that you recommend? I mean, we all sort of in this group might know a Finn, right, who would help you, but are there services that you can think of?
Even Lena might be able to answer that. I mean, I wish I had a list of great businesses and entrepreneurs to offer, because what comes to mind for me is AI, that now, you know, it's so possible to do kind of scan our archival documents so that they are readable, that you can then copy them into into a Word format, and then you can plug that into, someone put Google Translate. You can, there's also, I mean, there's so many of them now, these AI ones, some that are a little bit more sophisticated even, but there's questions about how we want to do this too, because, well, we don't have the time to get into the questions of AI and ethics, but
that would be a great Finnposium, wouldn't it? That's all about AI and ethics.
But if it's something that's not, you know, very sensitive in nature, then I would recommend doing one of those tools, those artificial intelligence tools for translating.
Yeah.
Oh, someone has a business.
Oh, and we already have someone's getting themselves a testimonial in our chat already.
Okay.
Great. This is great. I mean, this is also what I think there was a question about compiling links. I think there obviously, we were highlighting two resources, both of this, the Migration Institute, the Heritage Center, are part sort of a landscape of places where some material is available. And I think that if I could summarize a takeaway for me, you know, it's like, it is about solving a puzzle. So you sort of have to start somewhere at one of these resources, and it'll often lead you to another one. And I mean, in some ways, you make the resources better when you make connections, right? It's like, oh, now we know that this family has records maybe there, and that makes it easier for another person to come through and sort of piggyback off the connections people maybe were already able to make. I think we could go on forever. We're sort of at the end of our time, and I do want to really just, if everyone has a virtual round of applause to give to Samira and to Joanna for the fantastic presentation they did today. We really appreciate that. Lena, it's been fantastic to partner with Sam on this. I think we showed today that we have some common interests here, and I hope this will be the beginning of more collaboration to come. As you said yourself, we're sort of a mirror of each other, one in Finland, one in the US, sort of SAM and FFN, and also to wish a happy 50th anniversary to the Migration Institute. We look forward to events that you may have for the rest of this year. And of course, to everybody for coming. We will save the chat for our internal use, but there will be a recording of this made available on our YouTube, and that will be blasted out via email as well. So for now, I want to say kiitos paljon, tack så mycket, then we'll see you in another Finnposium soon, if not live somewhere. Thank you all so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Kiitos.